They start recording.
Okay, I'm going to call this meeting to order. This is the May 5th edition of the City of Lafayette, California Traffic and Circulation Commission. Happy Cinco de Mayo to everyone. So as our first item, I'm going to conduct a roll call, starting with Commissioner Stella Weatherspoon,
Present.
Commissioner Greg Brown,
Present.
Commissioner Lynn Hedane.
Present.
Commissioner Sahar is not present tonight, and I am board chair. Bart Carr, and I'm here.
Where am I? Never mind. Absent-minded. I shouldn't. Thank you.
All right.
You need my glasses.
Okay,
Yeah.
with that, item 3 doesn't pertain to this tonight's meeting. Item 4 is adoption of the agenda. Do we have any changes to the agenda? Okay,
But I know.
no changes. Do I hear a motion to adopt the agenda?
So move.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, okay. Before we go into the general public comment, I have a couple items I want to read. First being, members of the public may participate virtually in this meeting via video feed. However, the city cannot guarantee that the public access will be uninterrupted and technical difficulties may occur. Every effort will be made to restore video and audio access. However, unless required by the Brown Act, Transportation and Circulation Commission meetings will continue despite technical difficulties. In the event of a video interruption, members of the public are invited to join us in person here at our meeting room. The second item is regarding public comment. Public comment must be within the subject matter jurisdiction of the commission and can be either be given for items on the agenda at the time that item is being heard or during the public comment agenda item for items not on the agenda. In-person commenters are asked to submit speaker slips, and public comment is limited to 3 minutes. If a commenter reaches and exceeds 3 minutes, I will politely ask the commenter to conclude his or her comments. So with that, thank you. With that, we are going to go into the general public comments. This is the time where if you have a public comment not pertaining to an item on tonight's agenda, this is when you should speak up. And I have one slip here, but this is for the agenda item. So seeing there's no public commenters here, do we have anybody online?
No racing.
Okay, then we will close the general public comment period. There is no old business, so we're going to go into new business. Item A is 2024 traffic calming program. Traffic calming project on Glen Road. Staff's recommendation to this commission is 1, construct 2 or 3 speed humps along Glen Road between North Thompson Road and Monticello Road, subject to approval of future funding of the traffic calming sinking fund. And the second item is to recommend this to the city council, recommend that the city council authorize funding from the traffic calming sinking fund to design and construct the proposed speed humps on Glen Road. So that's what we are considering at this point in our meeting. I'm going to turn it over to staff for a report.
Great. Thank you. So tonight, as you mentioned, we'll be discussing the second of the 2 proposed traffic calming projects from the 2024 traffic calming program. And the proposed project that we'll discuss tonight is on Glen Road. The commission will remember that the Lafayette traffic calming program was updated in 2023, and the corresponding traffic calming guidebook was created in order to describe the program's intent, including its goals and policies, as well as the application process. The updated program remains a resident-driven, application-based program that is designed to address speeding along residential streets with speed limits of 25 miles an hour. And under the program, projects are initiated by members of the community who identify concerns with speeding on their streets. The application form, which is shown here on the slide, requires a demonstration of community support for traffic calming in principle. And a total number of signatures are required from at least one half of the distinct addresses on both sides of the block in question in order to be considered for traffic calming. And for this application on Glen Road, about 67% of all fronting households provided a signature on the application. So here's a general timeline of the annual cycle as shown in the guidebook. So to date, for all applications received up to September 30th of last year, we collected and evaluated data for each of those streets, informed all of the applicants of the decision to accept or not accept their application to the program. We determined the recommended traffic calming measures and informed all households along the street in question of the status of their projects. So after each project is brought to this commission, proposed projects will be brought to an upcoming council meeting for final approval. And if approved by city council, engineering staff will complete design and move into implementation this summer. So that brings us to Glen Road. Glen Road is a street with approximately 55 homes that's accessed off North Thompson Road and Deer Hill Road, just north of the Lafayette BART station. So here's a closer look at the street. The application for traffic calming included the entirety of Glen Road from North Thompson Road to the end of the street. Glen Road carries between 650 and 1,110 vehicles per day, depending on the location. It doesn't provide through access, though both Nordstrom Lane and Monticello Road and a few side streets from those streets are accessed off of Glen Road. Finally, Glen Road is classified as a residential street in Lafayette and has not been identified in the city's updated safety element as a designated evacuation route. So here's a screenshot of Glen Road at about 11:41, where vehicle speeds were collected. This shot is looking south towards Nordstrom Lane and the bend in the road just beyond Nordstrom. You'll note that in this location, the street is a straightaway on a relatively narrow street with few cars parked on the road. Travel lanes with the striping are about 10 feet, and this helps to reduce the space for drivers to travel, but it doesn't provide room in many locations for pedestrians to share the road with those drivers. And while the striping in the road, including the double yellow center line, helps to provide visual cues to drivers to slow down, speeds are still relatively high in this location. So this is the northward facing screenshot from the same location, looking towards Monticello Road and the top of Glen Road. So here you'll notice the open ditches on the right-hand side. These are present along portions of the street, and this precludes pedestrians and cyclists from traveling outside the travel lanes. Next. So this table, which is also included in the staff report, summarizes the data that was collected for the street. So to review, data is collected on all streets that have applied for traffic calming on the same days, and is collected for a full 48 hours on weekdays when school's in session. So typically this represents kind of a worst case scenario of traffic volumes and speeds. So this table represents data on Glen Road. So the address number is shown in the second column. This indicates where the data was collected. So for Glen Road, we collected data in two different locations, given the length of the corridor. The first location was at 1141, approximately halfway between Nordstrom Lane and Monticello Road, in that straightaway section of the roadway. The second location was at 1085 Glen Road. This is located at the bottom of the street, closer to North Thompson Road, at approximately the midway point between those two curves in the street. So at 1141 Glen Road, you'll notice that the 85th percentile speeds are over 30 miles an hour in both directions. And the speed limit on the street is 25 miles an hour. So without any pedestrian facilities on this reasonably narrow roadway, that speed can feel uncomfortable. I've also included some other metrics meant to demonstrate the severity of speeding. So at this location, you'll notice that approximately 70% of traffic is traveling over 25 miles an hour, and over 20% of traffic is traveling over 30 miles an hour. And speeds tend to be slightly higher in the southbound or downhill direction versus the northbound direction. At 1085 Glen Road, the speeds are not quite as egregious. The 85th percentile speeds are 29 miles an hour in both locations, with between 50 and 60% of vehicles traveling over 25 miles an hour. And perhaps given that this location is between the two curves in the road, fewer than 10% of vehicles were measured traveling over 30 miles an hour. So what we're recommending for Glen Road are speed humps. And as described in the traffic calming guidebook, speed humps are elongated vertical mounds that extend across the travel lanes in order to encourage slower speeds. These are photos of an existing speed hump along Silverado Drive in Burton Valley. They are between 3 to 3.5 inches high with a ramp length of 3 to 6 feet, and they extend across the vehicle lanes toward to the gutters. Next. So why are we recommending speed humps? In short, because they are the most effective and affordable means to promote consistent and slower vehicle speeds along a segment of roadway. The next few slides, I'll provide evidence from local studies to support this, but I'm pulling data directly from two recent reports. One is very local. It's the final evaluation study from the Burton Valley Elementary Traffic Calming Pilot Study. And the other is an evaluation study that I had conducted at the SFMTA in San Francisco. San Francisco study included a larger number of speed humps in the sample size for evaluation, and it also included both a quantitative as well as a qualitative analysis. Next. So these are just some of the key findings from both these studies that were consistent with each other, that speed humps are effective at reducing 85th percentile speeds while nearly eliminating egregious speeding over 30 miles an hour. Generally, speed humps did not result in any detectable impacts on traffic volumes, and so not as applicable in this street where there's no other routes to take. But while it may not impact the number of vehicles using a street as cut through, studies show that they are also unlikely to create diversion onto other streets. And qualitatively, residents reported it to a survey conducted in San Francisco that speed humps either improved or had a neutral effect of quality of life on their block. And when looking at Burton Valley, speed humps were initially very controversial and polarizing in the community, but after implementation, about 57% of residents voted to keep them on their streets as part of a survey taken throughout that neighborhood in 2023. Next. So here's a slide showing the results of one of the speed humps installed in Burton Valley, this one on Burton Drive. The bar chart shows the percentages of vehicles traveling above the speed limit, both before, as shown in orange, and after, shown in red, the speed hump installation. So you can see a huge decrease in the percentage of speeding vehicles. You can also see kind of in the center of the slide that the speed hump resulted in a reduction in the 85th percentile speed from 34 miles an hour down to 26 miles an hour. Next. So going back to this proposed project, staff is recommending construction of 3 speed humps along Glen Road between North Thompson Road and Monticello Road. We're proposing the following locations circled in red that will, along with the 2 kind of curves or bends in the road, promote consistent and lower speeds along the entire corridor. Speed humps will be sited to meet site distance requirements of about 150 feet and will avoid overlapping with driveways and utilities such as manholes, hydrants, water valves, and monuments. On this map, I included the distances of the proposed speed humps from each other and from the curvature in the roadway. So the middle hump is proposed for a location approximately 375 feet from the curve immediately south of the intersection with Nordstrom Lane. There's approximately 425 feet between that and the northernmost speed hump, and then about 500 feet to the intersection with Monticello Road. Again, staff believes that this proposed spacing will help to encourage slower, consistent speeds, particularly as residents in the neighborhood become accustomed to the proposed humps after construction. And one key difference between this project and others that have been discussed here is that the current funds available for this project would only afford a total of 2 speed humps and the associated signage and striping. So construction of the proposed third speed hump would be dependent on council's approval of the $50,000 request to be placed into the traffic calming sinking fund. And then it's started in June. And if the request is approved, a third speed hump would be recommended and would be funded via the added funds into the sinking fund. Thank you.
So are we being asked to consider one or the other, or are we being asked to consider the three?
Consider the three.
And then the council will decide whether they
Yes.
want to fund the additional.
Mhm.
Okay, all right, thank you. So at this time, this is the chance for the commission to ask questions of staff. And then following that, we'll go into public comment for this item. I have a couple of questions. The first one is pertaining to the signature gathering.
Mhm.
I just wanted to make sure that you carefully, because from what I saw from the attachment, there were three or four separate forms that were where signatures were collected. I just want to make sure that we did confirm that there was a majority.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And then secondly, were any other traffic calming practices used along Glen Road prior to what
Well, I
we're
mean,
considering tonight?
The striping, the existing striping that's out there today was not installed as a traffic calming measure, but it is used as a traffic calming measure. So there are edge lines, white edge lines along the side of the roadway, and then a double yellow center line, which effectively makes the vehicle lanes 10 feet. And the commission is aware that past traffic calming projects, we have proposed to install striping to help reduce speed. So the street is already striped to narrow the lanes and also provide visual cues to drivers that there's less space to drive in.
But some of the, looking at the guidebook, some of the resident action activities, those weren't practiced here. A traffic pledge,
Oh,
signage campaign, that kind of thing.
no, because the speeds were high enough here that we felt that speed humps were.
Were the,
Mhm.
okay. And what about a radar speed sign? Was that ever used here?
No.
No?
No, I mean, that would,
It's probably be tough because it's a very, as you say, there's no shoulders per se, and it's a very narrow road. So where would you put it? I'm just
right.
curious whether it might have been, you might have found a spot for it. Those are all the questions I have right now. Yes, Greg.
Patrick, I noticed the recommendation is for 2 or 3 speed humps, and I didn't know if the distinction there is because of the budgetary issues or like in the design issue, if there's a proposed 2 hump.
It's a budget issue.
Okay.
Yeah.
If there were only budget for 2 humps,
Mhm.
what
I would
would
propose
your recommendation
Two
be?
on the straightaway where the speeds
Okay.
are the highest.
That's my thought. And then, did you look at all at any of the speeds or traffic issues north of Monticello? It looks like it's, a little steeper there. And I didn't know, I mean, obviously less traffic, but I didn't know if it was.
I didn't collect speeds on that northern portion. I mean, there's only maybe 20 homes up there. And they're the only ones using the road. So if it was an issue, my recommendation would be to talk to your neighbors and encourage slower speeds in that section.
All right, thank you.
Anyone else? Nope. Okay, then we'll go into public comment for this item. I have one speaker slip. Lee McAdams.
I'm Lori McAdams, and I reside at 1141 Glen Road with my husband Danny. And I was one of the 3 neighbors to initiate the traffic calming request study. And first, I just want to say thank you for having such a clear program and process to follow. It was very easy, and we have a Google group for our neighborhood for all the homes in the Glen area. There's about 130 or so. Not everyone subscribes, but the majority do. And so we have communicated regularly over the last 8 months or so with the neighbors. And so we went in September and got all the signatures, and we did get more than were required on Glen Road, just because we could. I do want to note that everybody does use Glen Road, though, not just the folks on Glen. So we've tried to communicate with the others as well. Anyway, very happy with the results. I'd be happy to have a speed hump in front of my house, as would my next door neighbor. I'm regularly in my front yard. One of my fellow collectors, if you want to speak, he has a phone with me. Anyway, and so I'm really happy to slow down. It would be wonderful way to slow down the traffic. We're a heavily walked neighborhood, given our proximity to BART and to town, and we have many young families, lots of dogs, and it's just really scary sometimes. And it's not just the neighbors, because in our Google group, we talk regularly about slowing down so people don't have to dive into ditches. But these days, there are so many DoorDash and Amazon and UPS and gardeners and pool people that don't care. One, we don't have a way to communicate with them other than to ask the homeowners to please tell people when they drive there, but there's just not a way. So it's not just for our neighbors, it's because if other people come into our neighborhood for business. There were multiple pages to the submission, one, because you're supposed to divide it up by section, so we did that. But also we had neighbors who were out of town that were so committed, they faxed in their signatures, and that's why we had extra pages as well. So again, I just want to say thank you. I hope very much that you decide to recommend to the city council that they approve this, and it would be great to have funding for all three. And we'll take what we can get. So thank you.
Before you are any questions for the speaker? I have one. Would you say the majority of the speeders along Glen Road are UPS trucks and gardeners?
No, not
and
necessarily.
Not necessarily.
We have teenagers too.
Okay.
And I think most of us, we try to be a friendly, get to know you kind of neighborhood. So if we identify who it is, I've personally spoken to the homeowner about the speed that I noticed. Our mailman actually is wonderful, and he too has tracked down dog walkers and who are driving to pick up the dogs and stuff. And so we try, but no, I would not say it's the majority of delivery. Neighbors drive too fast too.
Following up on Commissioner Brown's question, would you say that the slope beyond Monticello, does that contribute to southbound speeding, or is that part of the?
I think it just people feel maybe, I don't know that those folks are driving any faster, they have farther to go. So I don't know that it makes a big difference. I will note that one of our neighbors who is very supportive would love to see a hump on the farther up on Glen too, because he's concerned, but of course we can continue to talk to the neighbors as well. So.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, if I have any more speaker slips, please give them to me.
Okay.
Thank you. Before you sit down, Mr. Matheson?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're up next. Matheson?
Okay. Okay, I'm Nordstrom up to Hilltop Drive, so I've been here for about 45 years. And I've been walking to town and driving to town all those years. For about 30 years, I walked to town. And I would say, if you only have the choice of two, I would say the one in the lower part is probably more important, because it's amazing. People coming off of North Thompson, they're getting into Glen and they just speed like crazy going up there, especially the delivery trucks. I mean, they're just going nuts on that little round trip there, or that little turn there. So I can't speak for the people that's higher up. But in the lower part, it's amazing. I mean, they just speed like nuts. And this includes young kids in their little, Broncos and all that kind of stuff, but especially the delivery trucks. So I would say if you only have two, I think the two lower ones is what you should have. That's all.
Thank you. Any questions?
Yeah,
Yeah.
just to clarify, so you're saying, the ones recommended on the two lower ones on Glen, or are you talking even lower than the Glenn Thompson
The two,
intersection.
the two lower one, that's one, yeah, the two lower ones on the
Okay.
map there, yeah.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Our next speaker is, help me, Ms. Bhutan.
Yes,
Bhutan.
thank you. So my name is Lauren Boughton. I had the unique opportunity of growing up in the Glen. I grew up at the end of Nordstrom, right up in here. From the time I was 2 all the way until I graduated, and then I went away for a couple of decades and moved back to the Glen. I loved it so much right here. That's my house right there. And I have a 3-year-old and a 10-year-old and a pediatrician in the community. And over, seeing over the last 40 years how much the neighborhood has changed in amazing ways, but the biggest issue is traffic. I did not anticipate when we moved back, we moved from Oregon, and I didn't anticipate how scary it would be living on Glen now, because I grew up visiting all my friends up and down the Glen. We rode our bikes. We never thought twice about it because there was not as much traffic. There were less homes. So Dr. Seaborg used to own like this area here. It was just a giant field growing up. We all played baseball there and would come as a neighborhood. And now there are 3 more homes there. So if you think of all the big plots that have been divided over the years, it adds a lot of people. It adds a lot of new buildings. It adds a lot of construction, Uber, DoorDash, all the things. And it's scary as a parent. The family across from me has 3 little children, and our kids were scared to let them go play with each other because another day, just this week, we were out front with the kids. I was coming home from work, and Linus is across the street. His little ones were waiting to see it, and he watched one of the neighbor cars pull around a truck and then zip past him because he was going too slow and come by. And then Linus made one of these motions, and the man got out of his car and confronted him about it, saying, I don't drink too dangerously. And this is a neighbor that lives at the end, is actually notorious for this. And so it's not just like, it's everybody. People speed, even good people speed. It's just like reality, but we have a lot of new young families and that have kids and older people that want to walk their dogs and do have to jump into ditches. We don't have a neighborhood that has sidewalks, which a lot of, like, Happy Valley is great because it has a beautiful sidewalk all the way down. So the kids walk all the way home, they walk through the passageway, and then they all scatter through the Glen. So I'm a huge advocate for this. I think it would make all of us that live on the Glen a lot more can rest assured that our kids are safe and that our friends walking dogs are safe. So yeah, and I think all 3 locations are amazing, and we're ecstatic to have them bordering our houses. So thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for the speaker? Okay, thank you. Do we have any online comments?
No hands are raised.
No hands raised? Okay, well then I will close public comment. And we'll bring this item back to the commission for further discussion and for a vote. Do we have any additional?
Do we have any more paper?
No.
Nothing else? I don't see any more people, but do we? No. Okay, thank you.
I'm getting messages from family, neighbors who are on the Zoom call saying, yes, the sidewalks and not having a place to walk are important.
So commission, any other discussion?
I have a question. In the photographs, it looks, I can't remember anymore. I've been over there so many times, and I didn't need to go again, but the, are those drainage ditches, most of them? Yeah,
Yes.
okay. That's a concern, the drainage ditches, to my mind anyway, for all the kids and people that are around there. That's all I wanted to know.
The right-hand side of the road is mostly ditch. Well, it depends on which way you're facing. If you're going downhill, the right-hand side is mostly all drainage ditches. The left-hand side, as you guys can see, like the gravel has a little bit more space on that side.
Thank you. Any more discussion?
Yeah, I'm curious, 'cause you mentioned that the stop sign at North Thompson, people delivery trucks just kind of spin right through. And I was surprised at the speeds that you recorded right next to a stop sign. It was kind of shocking. So are there compliance issues with people not stopping?
Yeah, my youngest, who's 3, I was trying to show him what a stop sign was. This was like 2 weeks ago, and I go, okay, Drew, we're coming to a stop sign. See you here on the right. And we're coming up to that stop sign. And the car in front of us did not stop and just kept going. He goes, but mommy, they didn't stop.
This corner?
Yeah, on the corner, if you're turning, you're coming from, you're turning right onto North Thompson from Glen. I was like, well, that's a good life lesson, you.
Most people don't stop at that. I think it's relatively new, like only 20 years old or something. And so but anyway, people don't stop. But then also when they turn onto Glen, as you said, they gun it and they, to get up Glen Road fast. So I was surprised it was a little faster down there, but maybe it's the turn.
I've got another question.
Okay.
I noticed there was a day recently that I would go down once a week to Dublin. And along the road, I don't drive the freeway, and I haven't driven the freeway probably for 10 years. I go take the side roads. But the road, the side roads along the freeway flash constantly your speed. So that it's not possible for you to lose sight of your speed, because they catch you, they'll catch you. If you're 2 miles over, you're caught. Who knows what they do with that, whether they get tickets or what to do, but it's significant because it grabs you. Is it cheaper? Would it be cheaper to flash these lights or have the lights flash?
No.
Or are
It would not.
no.
No, and also, the majority of traffic are local people who live in this community, and I think that with signs, they become
Accustomed.
accustomed to
Part of the
them
background.
over time, right? So you may, week one, notice the flashing signs, but by week 8, you no longer are paying attention.
That isn't the way they treat the side roads though, that I'm talking about regarding the freeway down to Dublin. They really do alter their speed. You see almost no speeding whatsoever, and I've been going down there for years. So it's worth thinking about and comparing costs.
Tonight's for
Is
this
it
evening.
Flasher, maybe, that is automatic?
We have speed, radar signs across Lafayette in lots of locations.
Yeah,
And they
no,
help.
they're
sure,
not
with
quite like
education,
that, they're just signs. Take the side roads and go down to who knows where. Anywhere down the side roads along the freeway there on 6-8. And just see what arrangements they've got. It slows down a little bit in Danville, but the other locations, they just go sailing along, but they do manage the speed limit.
It will only work if we get a ticket in the mail 2 weeks later.
Is that what happens? Yeah.
And we don't-
Well, for tonight's meeting, for this item, we're considering speed bumps. So I want to go forward with that. And I also want to mention that, again, these are sort of the newer kind of speed hump, at least what we've experienced here in Lafayette before. In earlier years, were very abrupt, higher, taller speed humps. These are only 3.5 inches tall, and they're very wide. So they're just not abrupt. They won't surprise you, but you do have to, but they are effective in terms of slowing down traffic. So, and they've worked elsewhere in Lafayette as
I like the
Patrick.
ones on Happy
I was
Valley,
gonna say the Happy Valley,
right, in front of the school.
Yes.
those are great.
Is that,
Yeah, because those are great.
yeah,
Are they going to get what we have on Los Palos Drive on
Yes.
that lower
Yes.
block?
yes, those are the newer ones. Yes.
Same ones, yeah.
Yes. Okay. So any other discussion before we take this to vote?
My only, I'm generally in favor of it, seeing the road, seeing how thin it was and speeds were already high, I do think it's appropriate. I just wonder if for our recommendation, city council, we definitely recommend the 2 on the straightaway, and then if there is additional funding, the 3rd. Or not. Just break it into 2 recommendations.
Sure, yep.
We can do that.
Yep.
Okay, how do you want to word that then?
Yeah. Well, I mean, so Patrick, you said that, you know, there's limited funding, only funding for two, right?
Mhm.
But you'd be asking for an additional, is it 50 or
Well,
25?
it's $50,000 to go into this sinking fund, which would fund next year's program too, so I would just tap into that for the third speed bump for this project. Yeah,
Well, I guess my point is only that I think all three, if there's funding, but the two on the straightaway would be the priority if there's not additional funding from city council.
okay.
But I thought I heard from some of the commenters here that they would prefer the most southern two.
I don't have the experience higher up north or Nordstrom, so.
You made that suggestion,
I made
so,
that
okay,
But it's really high, right there where the lower one is. As people coming around from North Thompson into Glen, it's just a disaster around that corner.
right, because in my mind, having the two on the long straightaway would be
Probably.
most effective, so I would agree with that.
Yeah, where we live, most of the people on right now, we all live in that straightaway and it's pretty.
And the data says.
And it did have the higher, yes, had the higher reported speeds, but
Okay,
I think it's also my city council what they're gonna fund.
okay. So the recommendation is one, construct 3 speed humps along Glen Road between North Thompson Road and Monticello Road. Subject to approval of future funding of the traffic calming fund. If only 2 humps are to be funded, then the commission would support the 2 humps between Monticello and Nordstrom Lane. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah, does that make sense? Okay. So that's, and then the second item is recommend the city council authorize funding from the traffic calming sinking fund to design and construct the proposed speed humps on Glen Road. That doesn't change. So with that, if everybody agrees with that, that's the motion at hand. Do I get a motion for that?
Support the motion, as yeah,
Support the motion, what I'm trying to say.
Yes.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. There are no nays, so the motion is passed. The amended item is passed. And this will go on now to the city council. So with that, we're going to move on to item 8, which is commissioner and staff updates. Starting with commissioner and oral reports. You guys don't need to hang around. You can leave if you want.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for
Thank
coming.
you so much.
Thank you for coming.
I have one item that I want to share, and this is probably Patrick. Thank you. Thank you very much. And probably Patrick is going to announce this also, the fact that we have Bike to Work Day coming up.
Yep,
That's on May 15th.
yes.
Okay, and so the city will be operating its own Energizer station at the Park Plaza. And it's gonna be from 7 AM until 9 AM.
Mhm.
I will be there, Patrick will be there, and everyone's invited to come down, ideally ride a bike if you can. But with that, yeah, that's gonna happen on the 15th, so. Anything, and so that's my one, comment, commissioner comment. Anybody else have anything else? No. So seeing that, staff do you have a oral report?
Yeah, besides Bike to Work Day, the downtown parking management study, we're holding our public workshop on Wednesday, May 21st. That's 2 weeks from Wednesday. At 6 o'clock in the evening upstairs in the Don Tatson room. So I'd encourage everyone to be there. We're also next week gonna launch an online survey. And so that will be open for 4 weeks. And so hoping to get a lot of good input from both the workshop and the survey.
How is that gonna be promoted?
I've got postcards we're gonna print up. We've already been in the weekly roundup, but we'll be in the weekly roundup. throughout the week. We're gonna have the Chamber of Commerce help to get the word out. We're gonna go to the school PTAs and try and get in our final newsletter of the year. We're gonna put the A-frames up next week to promote it. And social media next door.
So if you're a business, a resident, anybody can,
Anyone can be there,
and
yeah,
is encouraged to do the survey.
yes,
Okay.
Yeah.
And it will be easy to find. If you go to the website, it'll be easy to
Yes.
find.
Mhm.
it. Okay, great. And then the meeting is on the 21st. That's just going to a general information meeting. Is that?
yeah, so
correct?
we'll give a presentation about the data that we've collected, what the purpose of the study is, and then we've got some questions for the audience, and then we'll have time for the audience, the attendees to come speak to staff, put notes on a board, and provide us with information.
Okay, great. Thank you. Is that it?
That's it.
Okay, thank you. So that, I think, concludes our meeting. So I'm going to. Yeah, there's nothing else. So I'm gonna adjourn the meeting. It is, what time is it? 7:42. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Solid.